Welcome to Mineral Talks Live, the monthly live mineral webinar that brings you in-depth and in-person interviews with mineral people from around the world. Mineral Talks Live is brought to you by a joint effort among the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, the SMMP, and Blue Cap Productions. Tune in on the first Wednesday of every month and stay connected to your mineral world. Now, broadcasting live from beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, the land of aloha, ukuleles, and shakas, this is Mineral Talks Live. Hello, everyone. Today is Wednesday, September 6th, and we'd like to welcome you to another exciting episode of Mineral Talks Live. We're thrilled that you could join us because we've got a great program for you today. For those of you tuning in for the first time, I'm your host, Brian Swoboda, and I, along with my two fabulous partners, Dr. Raquel Alonso Perez and Dr. Eloise Gaillou, want to thank you for joining us today. Mineral Talks Live is a monthly mineral talk show where, for 78 episodes now, we talk with some of the best curatrix, curators, collectors, dealers, miners, researchers, artists, and media people in the mineral world. I'm proud to say that we are a majority female-owned program in the mineral collecting community, and we're thrilled that you tuned in today. If you happen to have missed any of our past interviews, there's a complete list of all those episodes, along with links to those interviews at the URL located at the bottom of the screen. Now, one of the things that makes this program unique is that it's not only a live show, but it's a show where you get to interact with our guests. All you have to do is participate through the chat or the Q&A features, both of which are located at the bottom of your Zoom window. The chat feature allows you to type messages to everyone watching the live show. We encourage you to post your thoughts, comments, or questions about what we're discussing in this chat area while we're talking. Now, Raquel, who is normally based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, is on a plane back to the U.S. right now. So it's just Eloise coming to you live from Paris, France, and me coming to you live from Honolulu, Hawaii, on the show today. Throughout the show, Eloise will be monitoring the chat area and will be active there. Occasionally, she may even interject a question or comment to us in the interview that she's received from the chat area. So don't be shy. Go ahead and use that chat area. As for any general questions you may have for our guests, those questions can be typed into the Q&A section, and we'll get to those questions at the end of the show. Finally, towards the end of the program, you'll see a window pop up on your screen. This is our Quickfire 5 questions segment to see how well all of you know our guests. It's just a bit of fun, and it's a way for you to get to know our guests better so that when you see them at the next mineral show, you'll have an icebreaker ready to go. I'm extremely happy to have today's guest on our show with us today. He's a really good friend of mine who's always ready with a warm greeting and a cool drink. He's an incredibly prolific field collector and geologist. He's a brilliant researcher, and like me, his ancestors come from the Western Slavic states. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Martin Števko to our show today. Martin, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Thank you, Brian. So first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to talk at this show,
Well, it's my pleasure. I know you and I, we've had plenty of dinners in Sainte Marie, and we've talked about getting you on the show, and I'm thrilled that our schedules have finally been able to sync so that you can join us.
Yeah, my pleasure too,
Now, cool. Now, Martin, you know that I always love to turn back the clock on our guests, so it's now your turn in the hot seat. Tell us about how you first got introduced to minerals and what made you decide to pursue a career in mineralogy.
Well, it was quite complicated, I have to say, So really, my first memory of collecting is from kindergarten when I was walking, and did find some small fragments of slag from the iron smelter, which were quite nice green and blue color. That's my first memory of collecting some, let's say, not the minerals really, but the rocks, But then later on, when I was around 9 years old, I was basically visiting the quarries around my city instead of school, I have to say. And yeah, basically, I was using my lunch money, which my mother was giving me for the buying a lunch, and instead of that, I was buying tickets for the buses, And I was traveling all around the county, to collect the rocks, and everything was fine for a while. But the one day I forgot to take that bus ticket out of my pocket, and it was over. And then, later on, my fascination with the minerals was also highlighted by my strong interest in the inorganic chemistry as well. And the most fascinating thing for me was that most of the metals actually are coming from minerals.
Right.
That was rather interesting thing for me. So I built a small laboratory in my room, and I was trying to extract all of the metals out of the any ore minerals which I collected.
Well, okay, wait. You built a small laboratory in your bedroom to extract metals out of minerals?
Exactly, yeah. But
What did
of
your
course,
parents think about this?
like normally with me, it went really funny because I nearly burned my parents' apartment during one of those experiments. So everybody in the town was aware of me after a while that I'm doing crazy experiments. Some explosions sometimes happened and things like that. Always carrying a lot of rocks, and I was always dirty kid. So the whole town was aware of me. Actually. So around 20,000 people were well aware that crazy kid is going home with more rocks, and he's going to do some crazy experiments after that.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so how did you go from doing your strange kind of Frankenstein experiments in your parents' apartment to studying this and turning this into a career? Because you are a well accomplished geologist, you are an expert in crystallography. There's a big jump between these two phases. Fill that space in for me.
Yeah, no, basically, I was playing with all of those experiments, and I was getting more interested in why those elements are there, how that whole thing is working, why that element is so common at some places, another is not that common, and these things. So that was the thing behind which started my interest to go deeper into the subject to understand why there is such a distribution of the elements, why minerals are formed, why they have different colors and shapes and everything. And that, shifted me to the position that I really went and decided, okay, I'm going to do the geology to understand better what's going on, why the quartz is so common and why some other minerals are so rare and things like that.
Super. Now, did you have, as many people have, did you have a mentor who kind of helped guide you and open more doors to either access to information or opened your mind a little bit more?
Yes, of course I did. First of all, it was my father who was interested in minerals a bit as well, because he was somehow related with the mining industry. But
Okay.
my grandmother put his private collection into the trash bin when he was in army. So at that point he stopped. But he was supporting me with these crazy trips later on.
Oh, I
And
love
he
that. Okay.
learned.
So your dad was kind of in on it a little bit.
Yeah, he was in a little bit, but after he lost his collection, he lost the interest a little bit. But once I
Right.
started those crazy experiments and everything, he realized that I have the same interest like he had before. So
Right.
sometimes we were leaching out the calcite specimens on our balcony, and everything was dropping down to the neighborhood balcony and things like that. And of course, he was doing that, but he said, "Oh no, my son, sorry, I have to excuse, but he's doing his crazy experiment once again." But he was pulling the acid into that system. So, but I was always good excuse for these things.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So then you went to where did you go to school to study this when you decided you really wanted to put all the chips in, so to speak?
So at the time when I went to the secondary school. We had two specialized schools actually in Slovakia, which were focused on geology. It was mostly like a mining and geology college, let's say. So
Okay.
I went to one of those schools, and yeah, it was quite nice. I have a lot of memories from there too, I have to say.
Super, super. Now, Martin, you're both experienced in field work and research. So I want to talk about that, but I want to start with your field work, okay? Now, you and I first met in July 2017 at the Volodarsk Volinsky mine in Ukraine. I was there to make a film on the locale, and you were there as a chief geologist for Ian and Deanna Bruce of Crystal Classics. Now, I'm going to play a little clip from some footage that I shot because this clip speaks to the size of the deposit. This is a world famous deposit. Everybody knows this for the incredible heliodors and topaz and big Mauryan quartz that comes out of there. But I don't think that they really understand the size of this. So this first clip is going to kind of show that size, and then you and I can talk about that a little bit more after I play that clip. Now, I think it's interesting to note that a lot of this footage is going to be seen here for the first time ever. So let me go ahead and roll this footage.
Yeah, it's one of the most famous pegmatite districts in the world. And yeah, that the whole history of the mining here was connected mostly with the mining of piezoelectric quartz for army purposes. It starts in early 1930s with a small development, and then in 1950s during the, or after the 1950s, and especially during the Cold War, it switched to a really extensive operation which was focused on the mining of quartz. And yeah, at that time, it was a really huge operation, and that scale for if we are talking about the pegmatite deposits, it's a really extensive scale. It's surprisingly big. I think that not so many people have an idea that this operation was really huge. That's a more than 22 kilometers long bench full of the pegmatite bodies, and the scale of the operation was really extensive, and it goes till early 1990s. So it was, at that time, it was really like a secret operation, and it was not easy to enter this area because it was special area of the special importance, because it has it produced something which was important for the Russian army. So hence, it was a closed area. It was not easy to enter this area, and it was high. It has a high importance for Russians.
So there were, like, let's say, 6 pegmatite bodies, different. The surface one, uncovered by the pit in 1960s, 1970s, and then from the dead part of the pit, the edit is going that way, and it's uncovering the group of 206 with the many pegmatites with topaz and heliodor, like a 422 and other famous pegmatites. And then in that part, from the first bench, they sunk a shallow shaft to pegmatite 364, which produced really nice greenish edged crystals of heliodor up to 3 kilograms. So that's the second very productive group for heliodor.
This is what I call the Ukrainian gumbo. I almost lost a couple boots. Went up to just about my knee, deep in this muck, and it does not let go. As you can see, it's everywhere out here. One area right here is worn. If you step into it, you're going to go down chest high. So this is what we do for heliodors. Here we've got Dan stuck in the gumbo. Her foot's about to come out. Rather than helping, we're just going to film.
You're enjoying it. Yeah, I'm happy.
Excellent.
So simple.
Now, Martin, I think you remember that time incredibly well. That was, it blew me away when I first got there, realizing how big this place was. And this is just on the surface. Share with us kind of some thoughts that you had when you first had arrived at Volodarsk.
Yeah, I was really surprised, because really that area was top secret area during the Soviet time. because the piezoelectric quartz was really important for the army purposes. It was really hard to get there, even late 80s. There were only you had to get a special permission to get to the area, and the maps were not common. There were not many published works about the pegmatites. If there was something published, it was in the Russian language, and mostly only the single body cross sections. But it was really shocking, even for me, when I first time visited the deposit, how big development was done there for the mining of quartz. Because nowadays you can prepare the better quartz in a lab. But they really did a big surface operation, and then in the 60s they switched into the underground development, which is several shafts, like interconnected levels, more than 100 kilometers long. So really a big operation for the pegmatite depot.
Now, in that clip that I showed, there was a segment where you were going through a bunch of the maps in the map room. Now, they had incredible records of the mine, incredible amount of maps, and you spent months just going through, pouring through access to all those maps. I mean, it was an incredible operation.
Yeah, it was, and really it was a nice job to see how detailed were all of the geological maps. So they properly mapped every single body, and there were more than 2,000 pegmatite bodies. And the strange thing, these are called like chamber pegmatites. So it's like mirrolithic pegmatites, the classic ones, which they tend to have a big pockets. But the normal mirrolithic pegmatites are normally up to 2-3 meters in size. But these are sometimes huge, like 70 by 50 meters.
Now, one thing that surprised me, this is my recollection, so please correct me if I'm mistaken, but in the beginning of that clip, there's a shot that's flying over a lake. Now, that lake was actually a pit, right? They were digging that pit, and that just filled up with water. Am I correct in that?
Yes, exactly. You're right, Brad. That was one of the several pits, huge ones. When there were clusters of the pegmatites, they made the big pits to open the several pegmatites by the one pit. And that's one of those examples.
And that was the thing that really impressed me, because I think I was there 2 days before somebody told me that that lake was actually a pit similar to the one that was being worked while we were there. And you had about 6 or 7 of those backhoes just pulling material out and kind of staging it out of that huge pit. And it was obviously very rainy when we were there, and this entire pit was basically a clay pit. There was no hard substrate anywhere. It was clay everywhere. You had to walk on the boards. Otherwise, like we saw in the clip, you might get sucked into the mud like Deanna. Now, that is, to me, remarkable, because we think of mines and we all have a very similar picture, but this went beyond the scope of anything I had seen before. Even in the little forests from the lake to the pit that we were digging, you would find these mini pits, almost as if bombs had been dropped there. And those were from all the local people coming in, digging, trying to desperately to find something.
Yes, exactly. So the biggest problem there is that the whole area is highly Calvinized, So there was a really strong chemical weathering. So let's say topmost, sometimes even 15 meters down from the top, it's heavily Calvinized. So after the heavy rains, it's just a pure mud and clay, So that's why we were not able to use the dumpers effectively there. So we were instead of that shifting all of the mud outside from the pit with the several excavators. It wasn't a cheap operation because of that, but all of the dumpers were just stuck in the clay and was over. So.
And to me, the interesting thing is you had mentioned what did you say? 2,000 pegmatite veins.
These are not the veins; they are like more like a bubbles, let's say, or rounded bodies which are not typically veins really, but that's why they are called the chamber pegmatites, because they are more like bubbles or rounded bodies. But it's more than 2,000 which were mined, and then around 12,000 which were discovered but were way too small, for the production of quartz. But 2,000 were really mined for quartz.
Now, I'm going to play one more. Actually, I have two more clips to play, but this next clip, also from Volodarsk Volinsky mine, we had been shooting there a couple days, and we had gone to the museum. We're taking a lunch break, and we got a call that they think they found something. So we had to rush back. And you viewers, you're going to see what it's like to find a large piece of heliodor there. And what I want you to pay attention to is look at the area surrounding the heliodor, and you'll see that it's all this clay mud. And so there's no signs pointing to it. You just dug and dug and dug and hope you found something. So take a look at this clip, and I think everyone will find this very interesting.
So 5 minutes ago, we were having lunch at Volodarsk. We had an urgent call from one of the miners here at the open pit in 206, and they've started to find a really big heliodor. This is a small fragment off of the heliodor, and we dropped everything. We've rushed straight here to see what this thing looks like. Even Martin's very excited. He can't wait to get in the pit because we haven't seen this yet.
Yeah, so let's take a look and go down to open pit to see the crystal.
At least it's not raining now. It's still very muddy. Wow. Oh my God. That's got maybe better. Oh shit. Holy shit, look at the size of this thing. Wow. This is incredible. 1.77 billion years this has been in the earth. And now we're seeing it for the first time. Look at the size of that. Wow. You found this? Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so that's collective work for all of the miners here. So yeah, hands up, you can see the result. It's great, nice etching,
Beautiful etching on it. Look at that. Wow. Well, here's the big crystal. It's going to be pulled out. It's been in the earth for 1.77 billion years. And the colour's great. I don't know how did you think this thing is, Mark?
Yeah, it's really nice. A big one with nice etching. So yeah, that's surprising. Yeah, it should be something.
It's a heliodor. This is a heliodor giant, and we're now going to check it out. This has never been out of the earth. So, are we going to pull it?
Yeah. So yeah, let's give it a go.
I don't want pop.
Yeah.
It's going down. Oh, listen to that noise. Oh my
Whoa.
wow. It's heavy. Oh my god.
Oh, who is the board?
Whoa.
Oh my god.
That's incredible. Wow. Watching, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I like that. Definitely seen it.
How did that heliodor taste, Martin?
Not bad. I can't complain.
Oh my God. And so now we also spent some time underground there. And this to me was the part that was really incredible because you spent a lot of time poring over the maps. And we ended up God, it took us close to an hour to get down into what was was it 520, 521, the pit?
521. 521, the biggest pegmatite, the biggest producer of heliter. Yeah, 521, second level of shaft number 3.
Okay, and this is where many of the great Heliodor specimens that we see on display at the different shows, this is where most of the great ones came out from. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
That was the best producer.
Yes, yes. Yeah. All right, let me go ahead and roll that. And I'm going to leave my mic on so that I might make some commentary during the playing of the video.
Yes,
and Martin, feel free to also make any comments that you want. So this is the bucket that basically you have to climb into. That's Ian climbing in right there. And then they lower you down the shaft. That's Peter Lickberg, who just happened to be there while we were there. So great collector, great friend as well. And he was there really in the early days. There's Martin climbing in. And I think we're going to make soup here. And that's Albert Russ, who he's a wonderful photographer, good friend of ours. And he was there doing some incredible documentation also. And then in a second, you'll see the big safety plate that is on top to prevent any rocks from hitting the people in the lift.
So it's a 10-minute ride down the shaft here, and it's getting progressively cooler and wetter. You can probably see my breath in the air right now. And off to the side here, there are a series of wooden ladders that the miners can take, and they use that because it gets them up and down quicker. There is certainly a significant drop in temperature right now.
And Martin, what shaft is this?
Yeah, Brian?
Yeah, what shaft is this?
This is shaft number 3.
Number 3.
So that's the level 1. And the pegmatite number 521 is located on the second level. So you have to walk down to the second level there.
Okay. And this I remember so well. There was so much walking that we had to do. Incredible, just network of tunnels. Everything has flooded. All that noise that you heard in the background, those were the pumps that were constantly pumping out the water. So very wet area. And these are a couple of the shots that Albert Russ had photographed underground. Just incredible work. He's a real master at that. He's a wonderful photographer. And everyone was carrying filming gear. That's Peter going up a ladder with a tripod. And that's Martin kind of waiting in the wings, making sure he's not directly behind Peter in case Peter slips down. And Martin's hauling my lighting kit. But I mean, it almost felt like it was raining down there.
So here we have a typical profile through the let's say leach zone, where we have still some breccia with the big fragments of the feldspars together with the fragments of the morions or smoky quartz, and then closer to the contact you can see some albite and later feldspars, which is called leach zone, and this is the zone which contain milliliters and topaz.
Да, был самый дядь Берила, было много. Мы тогда работали с местной фирмой.
And that's one of the miners that we were interviewing when we were down there. That was the main goal, to get down into that chamber and do some interviews with some of the miners, talking story about what it was like, what they were looking for. Martin, what was your reaction to being down there? And you had been there previously, but what was your reaction being down there in that chamber for the first time?
Yeah, the first time, was for me such a famous pocket, to see the place. And then I had the chance to see even heliodors in situ, when we were mining there. That was like, I was always, curious how those things are looking like when they are still in the ground,
Mm-hmm.
And that was really, surprising to see them really how they look like in that like elbite and mica fragments, the breccia, and they are in between just lying there. You have to be careful, but once you pull out those things, they are completely floating in the crushed material.
Well, I've always enjoyed seeing the heliodors that we see in the cases and in some of the wonderful books. And we've always known, you can tell at a glance, that's from Ukraine. But being at the locale, it gave me a whole different appreciation of that. Share your feelings along that same lines in terms of how Volodarsk Volinsky kind of changed your perspective of the specimens that come from that locale.
Yeah, I was well aware of those specimens because they were not that common in the Western market. But here at the universities, for example, when I studied here at the Comenius University, we had some specimens already in the 1970s coming from the Volyn deposit. But nobody saw them on matrix or how they were looking like. They were just appearing in the market. There were some theories that they are maybe even made in the lab by crazy Russians or whatever. And when I finally saw how the place is looking like, I was thinking, okay, it's going to be like small open pit operation or whatever, But when I saw the extent of the exploration tunnels and how many pegmatites were open there, and the size of the pockets, especially, because normally in the typical vein type pegmatites, the pockets tend to be not that big. You hardly have a walking size cavity. But here, sometimes the pockets are like 50 by 50 meters,
Right.
full of the quartz. And then below there is a leaching zone, which is typically containing those gemstones. So it was shocking for me to see them really how they grow in those areas where you have a big quartzes and the Russians removed all of the quartz because that's what they were mining, but sometimes left all of the gemstones there because they had zero interest in the gemstones.
Yeah, to me, that's fascinating. We all think of it for the heliodors, for the topaz, the bicolor topaz, but all of that was started for none of the things that we appreciate about it. It was a military operation to get the piezoelectric quartz for their, I believe, same thing in World War II for the walkie-talkies.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So now, Martin, beyond Ukraine, you've also done some important field work in both Mexico and Slovakia. Tell us about some of those projects. I have some photos from your exploits in both ready here. So go ahead and talk to us a little bit about those projects, and you can ask me to pull up photos as we need them.
Yes, sure. First of all, I have to thank you, Ian, Bruce, to really introducing me to this world of, doing all of these mining projects and searching for the localities which could be producing the mineral specimens. It was a little bit new for me. And yeah, well, I was really lucky, because after I finished the project in Ukraine and been working for Ian up at the north of UK for the fluorides, Ian came with the idea to do some other projects and maybe have a look in Mexico. What's the potential is there for the mining of mineral specimens? And so Pierre Magal, everybody knows Pierre Magal, the king of Mexican minerals, he put me in touch with the brilliant young Mexican geologist and mineral collector Gerardo Perez Reveles. And together we spent some really nice time in Mexico searching for the different localities which might produce some nice mineral specimens, So we went all around Mexico to look at the different either active or closed mines, little prospects. We did a detailed mapping of some of the localities. And one of those localities was Apex, San Carlos mine. I guess you have a lot of pictures from there.
Okay, yeah. I think this is a shot of you down checking out one of the pegmatites there underground.
This is El Tule mine. This is El Tule, which is famous for the combination of the celestine with the fluorite. So we went there to the Sokavon mine, which is major producer of the specimen. So you can see that's a layer of the pure celestine, which is like 1.5 meters wide. It's coarse grained celestine, and sometimes there are those pockets which produce a big plate of celestine, mostly clear or white crystals, and on top of those celestine blades there are powerful fluorides growing like different groups. So that was one of the abandoned mines which we visited. I had a look for the potential specimen mining operation, and then we went to the San Carlos. So it could be another picture then.
Is this the San Carlos?
Yes, exactly. So that's the start. So it was me, Gerardo, and one mineral collector from the Santa Eulalia area who knows the place very well. And we down on a rope to the one of the ventilation shafts, just with the plain rope, not much of the safe stuff, I have to say, but he said, "Oh, it's easy, no problem. Only 12 meters. You can go down, no problem."
Well, I like the ladder there. I understand you're taking a patent on that ladder.
Yes. That was like a little ladder, which was not that stable, but was fun, because I did a lot of crazy things before with the collecting here in Slovakia, so I had no problem to do that. And it was fun because we went directly into one of the abandoned stoves, which I was surprising the vanadinite was everywhere. So that mine produced, I think, one of the best vanadinites from the Northern America are actually coming from San Carlos or Apex mining. So I think that place has a good potential for the mining of specimens in the future. There were some really nice vulcanites coming from the place as well, which were kind of red crystals up to, let's say, 3 centimeters on white calcite, but those are pretty rare. But the place produced really nice vanadinites. I have one example here which I kept from.
I think you have one with you. Yeah.
Yes, there we go. I have one here. So really big chunky crystals, really nice shape, really sharp, three-dimensional groups with the calcite. Miguel Romero had the really good ones in his collection. But this find happened just a couple of months after we left the mine, and one of those miners, they went there and they were digging in the pillars, and they did find basically the best Mexican vanadinites ever. So that's one of the better pieces from the find, which it was a series of pockets, and they hit the market before the COVID, I think, And yeah, that was one of the good finds from the mine.
Absolutely super. And so I've got this photograph of a very heroic and satisfactory looking Martin. Where is this shot?
That's San Carlos after Wall Day Underground. After the Wall Day of Underground, I was so happy with what I saw there underground. And we just took a couple of pictures, outside of the mine. Because it's quite a nice place. I really like the view there. It's pretty abandoned. Nobody's there. But it's a lot of buildings from the former mining there. And you can get into the mine by the several different entrances. So it's really, I love to go underground to do the digging, So that was for me. I was in heaven there.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about some of the stuff that you've done in Slovakia. Where is this, and what are you looking for?
Yeah, so basically, that was a start. So I'm primarily collecting minerals from Slovakia, because that's the country where I was born. And Slovakia, it's not a big country. If you compare by size, I think it's size of, let's say, state of Mississippi. But since we have really like diverse geology here, and a lot of happened in the geological history of Slovakia. There are so many ore deposits. So let's say for the size of the country, which is like 40,000 square kilometers, we have over 1,000 mineralogical localities for different minerals and different mineralizations. So I was lucky to get into most of these localities doing my field work, and occasionally I did find some nice things too. Yeah, so for example, that's the type locality of the one of the minerals which I described from Prodopshina, which is named after the locality.
Okay. And
That
then,
was just
I love this shot.
yeah, the shot from Albert Russ. We went to see this mine, which is abandoned tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, there is a lot of gypsum crystals, which they have a beautiful shapes.
I think this fashion shot is perhaps one of my favorite.
Yeah, that's exploration of the old silver mines, which is going back to the 16th century actually. So this is really old tunnel, and I went there to see if there are any silver minerals left there, and there were some.
Okay. Now, this is actually incredibly impressive. Makes me think back on Volodarsk. Just the size of this chamber. Where are you?
This is the old stope in the Števko mine in the Hodruša Hamre, which was the biggest producer of the silver in Slovakia in history. And it went back to, let's say, at least 14th century. And this is one of the major ore shoots which were mined out completely nearly. And yeah, that's a picture from that mine which produced some nice silver minerals, some nice amethyst specimens. And I was doing a lot of underground exploration there because there is a still chance to find some specimens there. I was there last week.
You were there last week. Okay, yeah. I think we were trying to set up a test session last week, and you were out field collecting. This photograph, I mean, without you in that, or I'm assuming that's you, without that person in the photograph, it doesn't give a sense of scale, but having that person there just makes this amazing.
Yeah, at that point, at that area, the vein was like 8 meters or 9 meters thick, and they mined out completely that vein because it contained 7 or 10,000 grams per ton of silver. So the whole area is mined out completely, but yeah, it's a big stone.
Sure. Now, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, that's one of the copper deposits. I really like this copper secondaries, and we have a lot of localities in Slovakia. So I love to do the collecting of the different secondary minerals. So that's one of the localities where you can find a nice azurites and a lot of rare minerals.
That's great. And then, I just had to throw this in here again because you just seem to be Mr. Ladder Man.
Yeah, sometimes you have to go down. Going outside, it's a little bit more difficult than going down, but so far it works for me.
Well, now, Martin, like I said, I've known you for a long time, and I've known how passionate you are about getting down in the dirt, getting a little bit dirty, and looking for the minerals. But it was really when you gave a presentation at the SUBMEB conference. I want to say this was 2018, I think. You had done a presentation with a person that we had here on the show, Malcolm Southwood, debunking cuproatomite. Now, this presentation is currently online. People can watch this. The URL's at the bottom of the screen. I think Eloise is going to type the URL into the chat, so people can just click straight on that. Martin, tell us a little bit about what this study was and how you got involved in what you and Malcolm were doing to get this done.
Well, I was always, as I said, I was always interested in chemistry of minerals. And, everybody loves secondary minerals because they are colorful, they are really pretty. And that's how I started with the collecting colorful things, And I always had a strong interest in crystal chemistry as well, And those things just combined, and when Malcolm said to me that he's doing some research on let's say, adamite olivenite series from Sunep, and I will always love the Sunep like locality because that's really a prime locality for the copper secondaries. I said to him that actually doing some analysis on the Adamites or Leavenite series too from the synod. So we agreed that we can work together on that, and we put together a lot of data from different morphological types of the members of the series with the different colors, different crystal shapes, and we just wanted to know what they are, what they really are, because they are sometimes labeled like polyvenite, sometimes copper adamite, sometimes adamite. But we done a lot of microprobe work, and we did find how the solid solution is working there in the Synod. I recently done the same for the Milpilat mine, and it was rather interesting study, and yeah, it was great work with Mal together on that subject, and it was published in the Rocks and Minerals later. And yeah, it was not only interesting for the researchers, but since Malcolm had a lot of different habits of the crystals and colors, I think it's a useful guide for the collectors to, they can have a look either in the presentation or the article itself and see what they have in their collection, and they can see the chemical data, what is really zinc olivenite, what's adamite, what's olivenite from the locality.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful presentation. I encourage everyone to go check it out. Martin, you've done other research projects. Tell us about some of the other ones you've done.
Yeah, so basically, I'm heavily interested in the crystal chemistry of sulfur salts or any secondary minerals. So that part of my work is to find out how the natural systems or the compositional fields are working within the specific minerals. One of the examples was those adamite and leavenite series, but I'm doing it more rare sulfur salts too and the secondaries, And of course, I'm really interested in one subject, which is weathering of complex ore minerals, like, for example, tetrahedrite. So right now, I have a good project to dealing with how tetrahedrite is weathering, how the elements are acting during the weathering, which ones are more stable, which ones are more active, how the secondary phases which are formed are stable in a different environments, things like that. That's rather important, because then you can, this is really sometimes the results are really practical, because you see what was happening over the years with the fresh ore minerals, how the elements were mobile and which one were bonds into the crystal structures of minerals and are there. And some of them were leached out and went into the surface waters and whatever. And in case of tetrahedrite, you have a lot of toxic elements in tetrahedrite, right? So you can see that there is some synergy of the elements, how they are behaving during the weatherings. But some of them are more mobile, some of them are more stable. And if you have a complete study from the different geological environments under the different conditions, you can apply those results, for example, for the remediation of the former mining sites and things like that.
Well, I love that, because the research is focusing on potentially solving or laying the groundwork to solve real world problems that we could be facing down the line. So I think any kind of research in that field is very, very important.
Yes, sure. And the other thing is, I have a good friend of mine in Germany who is locked into the thermodynamics, and he is doing for me a lot of crazy solubility and any other, thermodynamical experiments to find out entropies and enthalpies of the minerals, and he can produce the stability diagrams of those phases. And I'm working on natural systems to see the real associations. And then we are fitting those data together to understand if what he is doing in the lab is really reflecting what's happening in nature or not. And you can calculate different things like the stability of any copper, for example, copper arsenate in the system, vice versa, the activity of copper and arsenic or pH or any other conditions. And this is telling you which mineral might be more stable under the specific conditions. So that's one of the subjects which I'm working with as well. And it's quite fun, because always you can get some surprising results.
That's super. Well, I mean, anything that can help us in the future, I love it. Now, Martin, in addition to being a field geologist, a researcher, you're also a mineral collector. So I know we're kind of getting towards the end of the hour here, but I'm going to start pulling up some specimens of yours. First, I think we're going to look at just ones in your collection, and then we're going to look at some of the ones that you actually field collected. So tell us a little bit about each one of these pieces as I pull them up.
Yeah, so that's one of those examples, So we have a lot, of course, the quartz is quite common everywhere on the world, but some of the really nice amethysts, very close to some Guerrero Mexican ones, are coming actually from those silver mines in the central Slovakia. So this is one of those examples of really saturated amethyst specimen where the phantom is from the epithermal mines in the Banska Štiavnica in central Slovakia.
Super.
Yeah, then getting back to the copper secondaries. So there is one mythic species which, Slovakia is a world-class locality of the Develin. And this is a Develin, which is calcium and copper sulfate. And yeah, it's well known like the Herrengrundite. And yeah, that locality in the late 1880s produced the best specimens in the world, and they are still the best in the world. So this is kind of like 6 centimeters tall specimen, quite nice rosettes of Develin, which is hard to get nowadays. And that's one of the specimens from my collection, photographed by the Laszlo Kuki.
Laszlo was a guest on our show, and I was going to ask you because these don't seem to have his signature on them. But thank you for mentioning him because he certainly deserves recognition.
Definitely.
Laszlo is here, by the way.
Oh, hey, Laszlo. Good to see you online.
Yeah, so this is another copper secondary which is famous from Slovakia, Ukra, So it's a copper arsenate, which is quite rare actually in nature. And again, it's a world-class locality. It's a type locality. It's in central Slovakia. It's called Lubietova. And the German name of locality is more well known. It's Liebefeld. And the Liebefenite is another mineral which was described from there. And the eucharite, it forms nice green crystals, sometimes even up to 2 centimeters. So this is one of the examples from my collection. It's the field of view, it's around 6 centimeters, let's say. Again, an incredible picture by Laszlo. And yeah, that's still a world-class locality for the species. Even China produce some good-looking ones, but Slovakia is still the world's best locality for the species.
No, that's super. And that's absolutely fabulous. All right, tell us about this one.
Yeah, and then we have a Kermesite. So, okay, the China killed the Slovakian Kermesite recently, or let's say 12 years ago, by the size, of course, because they produce like 12 or 14 centimeters fans, but they are a little bit too dark. And this is an example from the Pezinok antimony deposit, which produce also let's say the biggest aggregates were up to 14 centimeters, but they are a little bit more reddish. So that's another classic mineral coming from Slovakia, and this has a lovely contrast with the white calcite. Again, incredible picture by Laszlo.
Superb. All right, now we're going to go to some of the pieces that you actually self-collected, and the first one is this lovely azurite.
Yes, that was a surprising find because, of course, as you saw at the one of the pictures, we have a lot of secondaries. We have a lot of azurite here in Slovakia, but mostly like coatings or little tiny microcrystals. But then in 2016, local collectors did find a spot which produced even decent balls up to 2 centimeters or crystals up to 1 centimeter. So I spent a bit of time there at the locality, I have to say. It was right before I started to work with Ian, so it was a little bit hard for me because I was in between that azurite place and the Ukraine already. Mm-hmm. But I did find some nice ones. So this one is around 10 centimeters long, let's say. Yeah, and I got a bunch of nice ones there.
I love it. This is such a picturesque piece. I really enjoy seeing this. Now this one is a barite, and I believe the photograph was done by Albert Russ.
Yeah, this is Albert's picture, correct? And this is self-collected. I mean, it's just a barite, but this is a secondary barite from the supergene zone of the former iron copper mine. And this habit was called in old literature like Volnin, because they believed it's a new species, and later on realized it's barite. And the locality was producing specimens until, let's say, like 1880s maybe. And then basically the whole thing was shut, and there was no chance to get into the mine. But one day, a friend of mine did find a little hole in the forest, and we climbed down and did find the crystals up to 5 centimeters, which they were better than the old ones in museums. And that's one of the prime examples which I got from the place which we called cradle to grave.
Yeah. Oh, what a remarkable story. I love that a friend of yours found a little opening and you were able to crawl in and find this yourself. I mean, that's a story of hope and inspiration for all of us who want to do field collecting. All right, let's go on to this calcite, another photograph by Albert Russ.
Yes, that's just a calcite, but it's from the active talc magnesite mine, which penetrated alpine type weights at one spot, and did produce some nice pink calcites. This group it's like 12 centimeters across, And it's another crazy story because we were digging at that mine for the pyrite crystals, which was at the end of the lens of the magnesite, was like a layer of the schist with the pyrite cubes up to 4 or 5 centimeters. But I have already full bag of the pyrite, and I was waiting for my colleague partner that he definitely he never had enough, And I suddenly needed to go to the toilet, so I went to the dead tunnel to do it, But suddenly after that toilet, I did realize that there is a little crack in the wall next to my toilet place, and I did find those calcites.
Oh my God.
So suddenly, next 3 days, we were working next to my toilet place, pulling out these calcites, and the green quartz is similar like from Nepal, those full of chloride inclusions. And there were some incredible specimens, like 12 centimeters long green quartzes included by the chloride with the pinkish calcites on top. But it was a little bit stinky there, I have to say.
Oh, well, Martin, you give new meaning to the term bathroom rock. All right. Tell us about this guy here. This is great.
That's a goethite, another picture by Albert. And, we have a lot of siderite veins, which they have a lot of cosons, and they produce incredible amount of the nice goethites. And I was lucky that I was actually born in a place which is not far away from these deposits. So I spent a lot of time underground trying to find the good goethites, and I did pretty well or I was pretty successful with the finds. I did find in many different localities. Recently, even very nice iridescent ones. But this is around like 9 to 10 centimeters across. Really shiny goethite.
Superb. Absolutely superb. All right, this is the last one that we're going to review. So tell us the story here.
Yeah, another secondary mineral, and I mentioned it before. So that's from the type locality. It's libethenite, which is copper phosphate, with the pseudomalachite, which is that lighter green botryoidal stuff. But this is quite remarkable for the locality because normally those crystals are reaching like, let's say, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters. This specimen has a crystals like 8 millimeters across on top of the quartz, and I'm really happy that I self-collected that one because it's one of the really best ones from the locality. And I was lucky I got it. I missed the friend's birthday that day, unfortunately, because I went underground in the night to do the collecting there. But that's another picture by the last wall. And yeah, that's from the Thai locality. You can compare the quality with the old ones in any museums like Vienna or Prague or Smithsonian. So I'm pretty proud of this guy, which is like, let's say 9 centimeters, 10 centimeters across.
Absolutely superb. Now, Martin, you are also on the IMA's Commission on New Minerals, Nomenclature, and Classification. So, being that, you also get to help identify new minerals, correct? And is it about 8 or 9 new minerals that you've helped to identify?
Yeah, so far we are getting to 9 now.
Okay.
And working for a few more. But yeah, I was lucky that I did find several new minerals mostly in Slovakia, but I worked on other ones from the different parts of the world too. But I love to discover the new minerals here in Slovakia. That's part of my fieldwork as well and research. When you are searching on strange combinations of the elements, you are definitely going to find some new ones, and that's what happened. And of course, I'm in a commission like a voting member. And every month I'm looking at the new proposals of the new minerals, accepting them, looking if everything is all right with them. And it's quite an interesting job, I have to say, because you are learning a lot of new things, a lot of new discoveries, and sometimes really strange minerals are coming out. So I'm really enjoying to do that job as well.
So, do we have a Števko-ite on its way sometime in the future?
Don't know. I'm describing and naming them after mostly the physical properties, or I love to name the minerals after the type localities, of course. But somebody else has to do the job, not me.
Okay, all right. Then I've got 3 photos. Tell us about these that we're looking at. These are
so this is one of the
recently described.
This one I described this year. So it's argento polybasite. So everybody knows the polybasite, which is sulfosalt of silver, antimony, and sulfur. Normally, a polybasite has a copper in the structure, but this one is a crazy one because it has no copper, and there were studies believing that the copper is actually stabilizing the crystal structure of the polybasite. And there was a paper published that the polybasite the structure of the polybasite can hold without the copper. But here we have an example which has 0 copper and it holds together and it forms nice crystals. So that's from Kremnica, from the silver gold deposit epithermal in Slovakia. That's one of those examples of the new mineral which I described in last few years.
Super. Now, what about this one here?
Yeah, that's my favorite. There was one picture showing me how when I collected those specimens. So it's dobshinite. It's a rosellite root mineral. So the rosellite normally it's a cobalt calcium or cobalt magnesium arsenate. This is just pure calcium and member. Of course, the really bright pink stuff is erythrite, but the light pink stuff it's a new mineral dobshinite, which is named after the type locality, which is Dobšina in Slovakia.
Superb. Great job. And final one.
Yeah, and the final one, another pink one. I don't have an addiction to the pink minerals, but I'm so unlucky that I'm always finding new minerals which are pink. I don't know why. And this is a pretty common mineral. Everybody knows apophyllite, and this is ammonium-rich or ammonium-dominant apophyllite. So this is fluoroapophyllite NH4 actually, which I described, I think, a couple of years ago from the xenolites in andesite quarry in eastern Slovakia. So this is one of the rare examples where you have ammonium in a natural minerals.
Superb. All right. Well, Martin, we are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to move on real quickly to one of our favorite segments, which is Quickfire 5. I think you might know how this goes. If not, there are basically 5 questions I'm going to ask you. Each question has 2 answers. All of your answers are correct. The viewers have already seen these questions, and they have predicted how you're going to answer. So we're going to see how well they know you. Are you ready? So I'll read the 2 answers and you tell me which one you resonate with strongest. Okay. You got it?
Yep.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Question number 1. Favorite mineral to dig for, topaz or fluorite?
Fluorite.
Fluorite. Ooh, without any hesitation, you go fluorite. Okay. Question number 2. This gets a little bit more difficult. Tucson restaurant, Wild Garlic Grill or Buffalo Wild Wings?
White garlic.
Wild Garlic. Question number 3. This is really one of the toughest ones. Your favorite drink to challenge Americans, whiskey or vodka?
Oh, vodka. Let's say vodka.
All right, question number 4. Favorite locality, Sumeb or Ohuela?
Oh, that's a tough one. Let's say Tuna.
Sumeb. And the final question, the most necessary food, steak or lamb? Steak. All
Yeah.
right, we got our 5 answers. Eloise, do you have our readers' answers? Or readers, I keep saying readers, viewers.
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's go. Question number 1, favorite mineral to dig for, topaz or fluorite? Martin immediately went to fluorite. What did our viewers say?
Well, I think that answer surprised a lot of people, and a lot of people went for topaz and not fluorite.
Yeah. Well, one thing we didn't show, Martin spent a lot of time working at the Deanna Maria and the Rogerly mine. So that might have been the thing that confused everybody, just because we didn't show a lot of, or we didn't show any of the photos of that or really talk about it. But Martin spent a lot of time up there in Weardale. So even though they got it wrong, I'll give them a point for that. Okay. Tucson restaurant, Wild Garlic Grill or Buffalo Wild Wings? Martin immediately did Wild Garlic Grill. He and I have had many meals there together. What did our viewers say?
You know, Brian, we noted with Raquel that there was a lot of food and drink oriented questions. So we know there are some backstories there. So you have to tell them. Okay, back to business. People answer the correct answer. Wild Garlic Grill, indeed.
Super. Fantastic restaurant. I love that place. I don't know if I'm going to go into too much of
stories. You have to tell us the stories.
Well, the whole point is find us at a show, buy us a drink, and we'll share the stories with you. And this next one is certainly one that you have to find me or Martin in person, preferably both of us in person, to hear the story behind question number 3, which was the favorite drink to challenge Americans, whiskey or vodka. Martin, with a hearty laugh, went with vodka. I understand why. What did our viewers say?
They don't know that story, Brian, but they answered vodka.
Really? Oh, right on. Okay. Let's just say the short version is Martin and I went head-to-head drinking one night, and I matched him. That's all we're going to say for right now.
Fair enough, Brian.
Okay, question number 4. Favored locality, Sumeb or Ohuela? Martin went with Sumeb, which I figured he would do, but I didn't realize it would be so difficult to make the decision. What did our viewers say?
They answered Sumeb as well, yes.
Sumeb, okay. All right. Martin, why is it so difficult? Have you been to Ohuela, spent time there?
Yes, I've been there, and I'm recently working with Peter McGow on some of the secondaries from there too, and it's a lot of fun going there too, you know. So it was a hard decision to say.
Yeah, no, I know that recently you posted a picture from the famous bridge at Ohuela on your Facebook account. So I'd love to learn more about what you're doing with Peter down there. Final question, necessary food, steak or lamb? Anybody who knows Martin knows that he is a steak aficionado. So no surprise when he answered steak. What did our viewers say?
Steak as well. The viewers
All right.
did
I'm
very
going to
well
let that
today.
be a 5 out of 5. Congratulations, all you viewers. You've gotten Martin pegged. Luis, let's go to the Q&A section. We have questions from the viewers.
Yes, so we had a lot of comments in the chat. Probably you saw the little hearts and thumbs up and things appearing on your screen as well. So a lot of not comments, comments more than questions. Actually, for the last minerals that you discovered, I don't know their names, so I could not answer people in the chat asking me for the different pink new minerals that you discovered. I don't know if you can spell it out, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, that's argentopolybasalt. Yeah.
Not the
That's not a pink one,
yeah, no, not the apophyllite. Those ones, yes.
This is dobshinite. It's quite difficult to pronounce, but the town is called Dobshina, Dobsei, Dobshina, yeah, and it's called just at ite, and it's Dobshinite,
Okay, got it.
And was
Thank
there
you.
confusion about this other one, or they're good with this?
No, the question was on the other ones.
Okay.
Yeah, the other one, yeah.
Okay, now Laszlo had a comment for mostly you, Brian. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So he's saying, "Hi guys, amazing footage of the Volodarsk deposit. I bet you have some more on your drive. Will them ever be compiled to a complete documentary like the Mogok or Perdenera movie? So mineral people would be flattened to see, especially after all seems to be lost forever." So, question for you, Brian. Will we be able to see the full version?
Someday. We weren't able to finish the filming that we had originally planned, and obviously now some of this footage probably could never be shot again. The footage is safe. When I was in Sainte Marie, actually that night that you had arrived, Eloise, remember I saw you in the restaurant?
Yeah.
I was having drinks with Laszlo and Pavel and Martin upstairs, but on my way out, I ran into the Volodarsk people, and they want to start exploring what we can do with the footage that we've already shot. If there's a way that we can change the original story that we had scripted so that we can still produce a film and kind of repurpose it. So nothing is guaranteed, but I will say that there is renewed interest in bringing all that footage to life. So it's
Okay.
a qualified, yeah, maybe.
So we were very privileged tonight. Thank you for at least,
Yeah,
getting
and
that film today.
I haven't even seen that footage for, God, Martin, we shot that back in 2017.
17, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't think I've even seen that footage for 4 years or so. It's just been in storage. And I told Martin, I said, I think I have a drive, because everything I have is backed up on tape, and it's a real long process to pull it out of the archives. But I had a hard drive with all the footage on it. So I said, I think I'm going to be able to pull some footage for your interview. So yeah, it was the first time I've seen it in 4 years. And I spent most of yesterday going down the rabbit hole of watching some of this old footage. So it was a lot of fun. So yeah, I would love to bring this documentary back to the front burner and release it as a film.
Okay, noted. We'll remind you. No worries.
Okay.
All right. Louise had a very interesting question. Okay, so because of the current rush for critical elements such as lithium, rare earth elements, copper for batteries, energy, etc., is there an upswing of interest in mining these areas for this purpose?
Yes, of course it is. I mean, we can see it even here in Europe. I'm actually in a commission here for the Ministry of Environment, which is responsible for the mining of critical elements here in Slovakia. And the whole European Union is interested to find a new sources here in Europe. So yes, it's starting. You can see that there are several projects starting with exploration for cobalt, nickel, and lithium especially.
Lithium, yes, exactly. All right, so that was all I had in the Q&A. I hope, as Raquel is not here today, I'm probably forgot some in the chat. I'm sorry about that if I did. You can most likely contact Martin directly, maybe through or directly through us. You can send us an email with at info@Mineral Talks Live. That will be very helpful. And in the meantime, you've got it all. Martin, that was absolutely wonderful. I loved seeing that footage and seeing all the photos from you going down. That's just insane. And yeah, that's a lot of fun stories as well. That was a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you too, guys.
Well, Martin, we have one final comment here from Ann Beth Rayman, who says, "What a fun spirit you have, Martin. Wonderful journeys, stories, and specimens. Maybe your sensitivity draws pink minerals to you."
It's possible. It looks like, so far, it looks like, I'm trying hard to get some black ones, but, for some reason, pink ones are, just popping on me.
Martin, stick with pink. I think it's more perfect. All right. To all you viewers out there, thank you so much for tuning in. Tune in again next month. We're going to have another great episode of Mineral Talks Live. Have a fantastic month. Aloha.